Today, we are going back in time to old school Hallmark. But is this really a Hallmark movie? That is what we're going to discuss today. What do you think, Andrea?
Well, after all these years, we'll see. Does it still hold up?
Exactly. This is Eric,
This is Andrea.
and this is Hallmark Mysteries and
And
more.
more.
This podcast was created by fans for fans and is not affiliated with or sponsored by Hallmark or the Hallmark channel.
All right. Well, here's our recap for the movie after all these years. When a woman is wrongly accused of the death of her ex-husband, she sets out to solve the murder mystery and find the real killer before the day of the funeral, when she is to be taken into custody. That was it. I mean, it's very thorough. The first half of the movie, that does not describe the entire movie. But I will say, I have watched this movie probably 5 to 6 times now. And I was surprised for my overall enjoyment. I remember loving it the first time, and then as I've watched it now,
Like how
many,
long
many
ago? Because
times.
you've been a Hallmark fan for a long time. So did you
Yeah.
see it like years and years and years ago, or?
Probably my first time was close to 2013 when it originally aired.
Okay.
And then I've seen it, I had forgotten about it, and then I watched it on the Hallmark app probably a couple years ago because I reviewed it on my Instagram. And then, I've seen it. If it's on, I like to watch it. And so I was kind of debating, I'm like, where does this land? What star ranking am I giving it? And so I was debating between a 3.5 and a 4. And I will say it slid down to the 3.5 stars for myself. I still really enjoyed it. I find it zany. I like all of the quirky characters. I think this movie did a really good job of having characters that, because our last mystery with the one in Paris, we had trouble finding kind of that side character as the one that we loved. Whereas this movie, there's so many side characters that you could pick as kind of your standout ones besides the leads. So I really think that they give you lots to work with in this movie. I also enjoyed there's tons of Hallmark stars or like side characters in this movie. I mean, I wrote down some of them. So you're going to have Christine, who is one of the characters that the ex-husband leaves the wife for. She was in Morning Show Mysteries, Garage Sale Mysteries. We have Gretchen in this movie, who is actually Lillian in Aurora Teagarden movies. We have David Larrabee, who's in Chesapeake Shores and the dad in Signed, Sealed, and Delivered. So, and then those are just kind of the 3 of the main ones that really stuck out to me. But there are so many different fun characters I found kind of spotting up. And I'm like, oh, where do I know them from again? And kind of looking into IMDb, just because, again, I've seen it so many times, I was able to kind of do that this time. So that, to me, was probably the funnest part of the movie, this, 5th or 6th viewing, because, of course, I remember who did it. And, I still would throw it on, though, because I found it funny. It's the slapstick, but also the voiceover. That piece that I know people did not like with Francesca, I still love it. I love a good voiceover like that. And it's kind of that old school gritty detective. So that's kind of where I landed.
All right. So in my notes, I have about the voiceover. When we talked to Ron Oliver last year about Wedding Planner Mysteries, he said the script was so chaotic and disjointed that they put in the voiceover to give it some continuity. And I'm wondering if it's kind of the same thing, because this movie is
Oh,
around the same time, right?
yeah.
And I will say I gave it a 4 myself. I really enjoyed it because I'll say I think Wendie Malick probably elevated. Like she was just so spectacular. It is definitely more of a comedy than a mystery. It's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like when we talk about Crime Time, right? There's the mystery that goes along, but it really is the whole comedic performances. And there is so many, like you said, all the characters, side characters in here are all absolutely hilarious in their own way. So I had a blast with it. But yes, so I was wondering as I was watching it if the voiceover was put in after the fact, because the script, if you really are paying attention to the story, it's all over the place. There are so many characters that you really like the first time I watched, I'm like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. The second time I watched it, I'm like, I just give up because I know it doesn't matter. I'm just going to enjoy them for who they are. I'm not going to try to figure out how they fit in things, but just move on. But it was just, there was like that chaos element to it that was very similar to Wedding Planner Mysteries, which once again was very funny. I had a blast watching it. It's no way should have been a 4 if you really got probably critic of it, but it was just enjoyable. And that's how I found this one. And I just like actually laugh out loud during it. And it's because Wendie Malick is just brilliant. And like I said, and then her two friends, they were well, I guess friend and a half. I don't know if you can really call that a friend, but you know, when you're sleeping with your husband and murdering him, framing you, but whatever, here nor there. So I just found it great. And then the final 15 minutes of this, when the Sergeant Mulligan comes in, they're all hiding in the closet and going through the whole thing, and you know, the revelation is there, and then they come out. But then there's the interaction between Audrey and the sergeant as they are sort of grilling through the story and going through it. I thought it was just so good, especially towards at the very end, when like Audrey would say something and then the sergeant would go, no, this is me. And then say the same exact thing and then did it again and the same exact thing. And it was just, like I said, I found the ending brilliant. I will say, as far as a mystery goes too, I didn't really, because once again, it was so chaotic. I can't say I knew who it was. And you saw it so long ago, so you probably don't.
I do actually
you do?
remember
I will
who
say
who I thought
I
the very
had
first
my
time.
thoughts at moments that that's who it was going to be. But at the
I
same
did
time,
not.
I was not like locked in on. It's kind of, you know what it was? It's kind of like when we watched just last week, the Crimes of Fashion, where I was like, oh, I think it's him, but no, and I discounted it. And so that's kind of where I thought with her as well. But no. Then the other thing I will say is, as I said in the lead-in, is this a Hallmark movie? Because there's a character who smoked. Now, there is no characters who smoke in modern day Hallmark, right? There were affairs, not just a affair. There were affairs all over. Everybody was sleeping with everybody in this movie. And even at the end, the main two characters, they start making out and he's still married. He's like, oh, I'm going to be getting free and clear, but he is not yet. So once again, is that Hallmark? And then there's a line in there that probably, you know, was just a throwaway that didn't get it. But when
I wrote it down too, I bet.
Wendy's talking to them, is Mandy is flat chested.
Oh,
Like,
no, that's not the line I wrote down.
I guarantee you, like when they were describing her, and then they're saying, oh no, the one is saying how voluptuous she is, and then she comes back and says, that can't be Mandy. Mandy's flat, or there's no way Mandy's flat chested. I'm like, they would not be talking about boobs in Hallmark world, you know, today. So like I said, this movie was just all over the place. And then I'm going to have one other line in here, which I may be reading into it, but I'm going to say it was purposeful. But David Larrabee says to Audrey, just shoot me. And Wendie Malick starred in a TV show in the 90s, I believe it was, called Just Shoot Me. So I zeroed in whether or not it was an intentional nod or not. I don't care. I caught it. Yeah, she's in the car and he's saying, like, you know, this is her when she's going away after their first night together. And he says that's how he departs. So like I say, I had so much fun watching this movie that, like I say, is it a great mystery? And no. Is it a great comedy? It's got loaded. Is it a great movie? Too chaotic, right? But thoroughly enjoyable. So it gets a 4 for me. I watch it and I'll watch it again. And I'm surprised Hallmark still shows it because of all those things that are so not Hallmark. I think no one at Hallmark really knows what they have here. And they just throw the tape in. And if anyone watched it, they'd be like, stop, hit stop, you know, emergency interruption or something. So that's my thoughts.
The one line that I also thought wow, this is a Hallmark movie. So Wendy was laying in bed, and this is at the start of the movie, and she said, the only
Yep.
man who's been in my bed in months was Peter Thomas of Forensic Files. I was like, I rewound that. I'm like, wait, what? Like, this isn't a Hallmark movie? I'm like, wow. So
Actually,
they
I did
have
have that
some
one too.
great little one-liners that they sprinkled in that are, you know, in 2013, like, wow, I can't believe they did air some of that. So
And it's funny because you would think like, oh, 12 years later, 11 years later, whatever, oh, things would be loosened up and Hallmark would be, you know, a little pushing boundaries a little more. And I guess they are, you know, they have same-sex couples and things like that. But as far as like dialogue and things like that, no. They've gotten, if anything, a little more conservative in some of these things. Because like I say, this it just was not a Hallmark movie by today's standards.
yeah.
And you know what? I
Well,
appreciate it for that.
yeah, I do too. What about the mystery then? Like for me, I do actually remember who I thought was the killer. I remembered it the last time I was watching. I'm like, oh, I thought it was the son my very first time watching it. I'm like, oh, because I've watched enough Dateline. I also love how they threw in the Dateline
Yes.
references because I was like, oh yeah, that's totally what we are watching.
When she's telling the sergeant he should watch it to
Right.
be better
Right.
at his job.
Yes. And that's where I'm like, oh, in Dateline, that it is often it's the son who's doing it, and the other, you know, the parent is protecting the child. And so that's what I was thinking. And then when, you know, the son's friend had her in the apartment, I remember the first time watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna murder her because the friend was in on it too. And so I had this whole thing that was gonna happen. And of course, that was not the case.
You
So
were
that
going
is what I
really
recall.
dark.
I was. I mean, hey, this movie, if a movie was going to go that way, this would be the movie to do that.
Yes.
But what about you? Did you have any other guesses?
Like I say, it was just so, and I'll go back to it, it was just so all over the place. I couldn't zero in on anybody because it wouldn't, you know, I maybe I get a little too overly analytical when I think about them because I'm trying to solve it and I don't just like take what's given to me. So there's I forget what her name is, the Christina, the woman that
Christine, yeah.
he left her for, right? I'm like, oh, it's her, but no, that's too obvious. So I talked myself out of it. And I didn't allow myself too many things. I did think for a little bit that well, I have two thoughts on it. JJ, the son's friend who she was staying with. First, I thought for a while there, she was going to be getting a romantic with him. And I was like, whoa. And you know, I'd be all over that because of having
You
the older
love the
woman
age
with the
gap.
younger guy. I would be like, finally. But I was like, I thought they had like a little sexual tension going for a little bit. Like he had a little Miss Robinson thing going for his friend's mom. But I thought maybe he was the killer. And so he was helping her, but not really helping her. And then I thought it was one of the husbands. So like I said, I was all over it. And then I thought it was her. And why I'm forgetting what her name is, but you know, the killer. But I then talked myself out of it. So I was surprised. I would like to say I was surprised, but not surprised. Kind of like, once again, crimes of fashion.
Well, what about romance? What romance did you feel, or if any?
I'll just go back to I thought, first of all, I thought they had great chemistry. I thought it was really good. And they were
Between her and the ex-husband who died. Okay.
No. Between her and David Larrabee.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not her chemistry with the ex-husband. Come on, no.
I mean, I thought that they did a good job of portraying, like, here's what a marriage looks like 30 years later. You know, there was that love, but also.
So when I hit my 30th anniversary, I have to look forward to sitting on my bed crying about how my life is miserable to my wife. Oh,
well, not that
but
part.
yes,
the party part, the portrayal before that scene, before it went south.
The facade.
Yes, yes.
No, I guess I thought it was realistic in that aspect, but then her and David Larrabee, I thought they brought it, and like I say, it was pretty saucy considering he was still fully married. Now, granted, he did say like it's an empty marriage and things, but it does not matter in Hallmark world, right? So I found it very saucy and I liked it.
I agree. I mean, that's what I said, that they had fire chemistry together, and I thought they were super cute. I like that they, he instantly was like, "Oh, I know you're innocent, and I'm going to help you," and
Right.
I really enjoyed that. So for me, kind of sliding into that character corner, he is my standout character. I will say Silver Fox. I'm like, okay, he is also. So I was watching One Tree Hill, as one does, with the podcast Drama Queens, and so they go through an episode, and I just realized, like, oh, David Larrabee, he is actually the dad of Julian in One Tree Hill. So he's been in lots of different films, and I was kind of just doing a little research on him. And one of the quotes that I found him saying, which I thought was interesting, especially as I just made the Silver Fox comment, he says, "I didn't study acting for 9 years to become a hunk." And I'm like, oh, that's a great quote. And I thought I'd share it because that is where he landed for me. But he also is a really good actor. So I mean, it's not just that he is attractive; like he does have the acting chops to back it up.
Though, I have to say I can relate to him. It is so tough going through life, just being so good looking that
Silver
people
Fox.
just don't always take you serious, I can relate. It's a blessing and a curse. So, all right. So my character corner was, and you kind of ran down the list of all the characters who have been in other Hallmark movies as well. But Sergeant Mulligan, he was
I
also
loved him.
he was the mayor way back when in Murder She Wrote. Or Murder She Wrote. Murder
I was
She
like,
Baked.
no, he wasn't.
No,
Oh, no,
yeah,
no,
no,
no.
Murder She Baked. So he was the mayor in a couple of the early episodes
That's why
of
I
that.
recognized him. Yep.
And then he also was just recently in Curious Cater, Fatal Vows.
I
So
like him.
he's been in a couple of the mysteries. And then her son was in the most recent White Lotus. So he went on to very
What was
big
he?
things.
Was he one of the dad grandpa
He
trio?
was the guy from Soprano, something to do. Oh, now you're
Yeah.
gonna go with that.
No, he
But
was.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's where he
yeah,
was. He was the son then. Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
Did not know that.
So, like I did not specifically watch White Lotus. My wife did, and I just sort of was in the room during it.
I enjoy White
So,
Lotus. It's a
so
good
yeah,
one.
so it was that. So, in the character roundup, there was that. But I'm also going to go with the characters because something that when you get into the IMDb and looking at it and all that, so many of these characters were named after characters from Billy Wilder, who's the great American director from the Golden Age. And so David Larrabee is one of the brothers. He's actually the scoundrel brother in Sabrina. I don't know if you ever seen Sabrina. Great movie. The
Years
remake
ago.
with Harrison Ford, not so much. The original, you have to like the old movies. Great movie. But he's kind of the scoundrel, which I kind of find it funny that they took his name. But his brother's name is Linus, and I don't quite think Silver Fox being called Linus would have had the same impact.
Yeah.
But just throughout, if you just go through and you look at all the various characters, and if you knew the Billy Wilder movies, which I cannot say I'm an expert, I just know from almost all the little trivia things in IMDb where, oh, this character was named after a character from this Billy Wilder, and this one is from this Billy Wilder movie. So I found that kind of interesting that there was such an elevated level of thought given to these characters in what is almost a slapstick movie, right?
Yeah.
So there's a good underlying thing to it. So
Is that your trivia?
Lots of character there. So I guess that could be my trivia too.
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah, we'll just move it down to trivia since I don't have any other trivia, and that's probably better trivia.
That was good trivia. I saw that too on IMDb, and I am not familiar with any of the films. I've watched Sabrina because my husband told me to watch it because I think he liked it when we were dating. So I can't remember
the old
much
Humphrey
about
Bogart one, right? Not the Harrison Ford.
Yep. So I watched the old one, and then the only trivia I found was Wendie Malick actually had a 5-year stint as a fashion model in Paris and New York. So I found that to be interesting. I didn't know that.
Well, first of all, you know how I feel about Wendie Malick. You can look at your Gregory Harrison and I'll look at Wendie Malick and we'll just watch this movie all day long, right? I think she's just gorgeous. But in Just Shoot Me, she played an ex fashion
Oh,
model in
I
that movie, or in that show. So that does make sense. And plus she's like, I don't know, 7'10". I mean,
she has a build of a model for sure.
Yes, she has this very tall, statuesque
yes
body. So I definitely can see that. Plus, like I say, she's beautiful. So, all right.
Any final thoughts on the movie that we didn't cover?
I will say that anytime Hallmark dares to show this, people should watch it. And I'll go so far as to say it may be worth going ahead and investing in that free 7-day Hallmark Movies Now subscription thing, just to give this one and a couple of the other mysteries, or I guess maybe rom-coms. We don't really talk rom-com, but a couple of those other movies that they don't show very often, like Wedding Planner Mysteries, like just to give that a go. I would throw this in and say, hey, you're bored one weekend, you don't want to watch the Mystery 101 marathon that they show every weekend now, it seems. Get your free subscription, give it a go, watch this one, watch a couple of others. We can maybe that's what we'll do. It will come in a future episode. We'll show, or we'll say some of the cool movies that are on Hallmark Movies Now that maybe aren't shown very often here on the network.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my final thought, if you're into like that old school voiceover, you know, because I know some people don't like that. So if that's not your thing, you probably won't enjoy this movie. If you are not into mysteries where they have comedy elements to them, this will not be the mystery for you, because this is full of comedic timing. Even the way she finds the dead body, she slips and falls and, you know, boom, on the blood in the kitchen floor. And so like all of those things where if you're not into it, because I enjoy Monk. And so they play it now in the mornings. And so people complain that they don't like the funny mysteries. And I don't find Monk, I mean, he's got quirkiness, but he's not like a slapstick comedy funny. So if that's not your thing, you probably won't enjoy this mystery, because this one goes way farther than Monk in terms of like the outgoing comedy. So for like what you recommend, like for me, I feel like this is a blend of the Francesca Quinn with the voiceover, and then Cases of Mystery Lane with the comedic timing. So that's what I would say my recommendation would be, kind of a blend of those now, because you know,
Francesca Quinn, this is okay. Other than having a voice, other than a voiceover,
but
this is about the exact opposite of
no, it's the comedy. That's why I said you got to blend them together. It's not it's got the voiceover there and then the comedy of Cases of Mystery Lane. Together. Yes.
When we do our Hallmark and chill, there's definitely not Francesca Quinn on
That's what I'm doing right now. That's my recommendation. It's Francesca Quinn with a voiceover. And yes, you don't see it. I do have another recommendation in case anyone wants to know what Murder, She Wrote this reminds me of. The Harry McGraw episode. So if anyone is like, I love the voiceover and I want a little comedic timing with Murder, She Wrote, any episode with Harry McGraw has the voiceover, because he does the little old school detective voiceover, but he's also the funny guy. So that's my Murder, She Wrote recommendation, because I told you I could find any Murder, She Wrote episode based on the mystery that we are watching.
All right. Well, I referenced it earlier, and it does have a voiceover and is far more similar to it, which is Wedding Planner Mysteries, or Mystery. I don't know if it's plural or singular, but that one to me, I think, is very similar. But you nailed it, that if you're looking for really that more serious, like, hey, I'm a Mystery 101 fan, or I'm a mystery woman, or you know, any of those type mysteries, you really are not going to enjoy this, because, and I know that a lot of people actually, which shocks me, don't like Cases of Mystery Lane because of the humor. I like the blend, I like both, but yes, you are 100% right. If you are not wanting a just silly romp, skip it. You know, if you're a hardcore sleuther,
or if you don't like a bazillion red herrings or a lot of characters to keep track of, I mean, I still don't know who the one guy is that she went into the office, and I've watched this how many times? I still don't know what role
The one who
he
she did the
played.
FBI and to get the information.
Right. I
Yeah,
don't know.
right.
Like so again, you're gonna have questions even after watching it 5 or 6 times who these characters are. So if that's something you don't enjoy, you might want to skip it too.
Right. That's the whole thing. Like when I referenced that Ron Oliver interview with the script is like, I just think they just didn't like whatever, just throw it in there and it makes no sense, but throw it in there. So, and we'll move on. You know who we didn't mention? Maybe we should go back to the character corner. What was the lawyer's name? Johnny Lilac with his dog Tiny.
Oh yeah.
Is Lilac, whatever. I think it's Johnny Lilac. He was
Lavender. Wasn't it Johnny Lavender?
No, it's Lilac.
Okay.
But yeah, loved him. That was it was but same thing, randomness, like
right.
What he really fit in there. I have no idea, but I still liked it. So
what about fan corner? Did you hear anything there? I pulled some numbers.
Okay, I will say when you first sent me this saying, hey, we should talk about this, I thought at first it was a new mystery because I had never heard of it. And I watched it, and as you can tell, I found it delightful. But then when it did air in Hallmark, coincidentally, I think last week, I was amazed at how many people, and we hinted, say, hey, go watch it. And then when you put up the thing saying we're going to review this, I'm amazed at how many people have not only seen this, but really do enjoy this. So I was just amazed at how much positive impact that this movie has created.
Wow. Well, my numbers. So these are the numbers that I got from the internet, not from any polls that I did. Rotten Tomatoes, just a 36%. Amazon DVD rating was 4.6 out of 5 stars. And then on IMDb, it was 6 out of 10. So obviously, I feel like if you're buying the DVD, of course, you're probably going to like it. And so that's why that's ranked the highest, but it's also probably more of your Hallmark people who are buying the DVD. So I feel like that's probably more of an accurate rating. So if you are into like the Hallmark mysteries, again, you probably will enjoy this. If you are not into Hallmark mysteries, this probably isn't going to be the one for you.
Now, which leads me to a bigger question. Well, I know you do, but buying a DVD with your whole box set of Murder, She Wrote, but I don't even have a DVD. I have a couple of DVDs of things that I need to keep for, I don't know why, but I have not had a DVD player in I don't know how long. My computer doesn't have a DVD, slot. I could not play a DVD if I wanted to, but people are still apparently buying them. So
we have one in our basement. Our TV doesn't even work in our living room currently since January. That's on our list to buy because we just are on our our screens, our tablets is kind of where most of us watch movies. And then my husband has a big screen for sports down in the basement, but nobody goes down there because it's not finished basement. And so I feel like people consume differently. And I know I have a DVD player buried somewhere, but if I wanted to watch my Murder, She Wrote DVDs, I would have a tough time doing so myself.
Do they even sell them at Best Buy anymore? They have to probably have.
I mean,
three of them.
People clearly are doing it. Because I feel like I've bought the Family Stone, the movie The Family Stone, and I bought it via streaming. But every Christmas season when I try to watch it, it disappears. And then I have to I just rent it now because I'm not going to pay $20 every year because it just disappears from my cloud. So that's also.
You rent the digital version. I thought you were like, I'm like, I had this vision of you going to the Blockbuster and renting. No. I'm like, wait, where are you going to rent this? Okay.
That's my beef with buying it off streaming because I have bought it before, but it is never shows up that I buy it. So where does it go? So I don't want to do that with my Murder, She Wrote because what if it just disappears and I can't find it? I can't be without it. That's a problem.
I'm doing everything I can to keep us from talking about The Way Home, even though I know you love the episode. So here's my other question I will ask you. Okay. If they were to do a remake of Murder, She Wrote, who would you think could be cast as Jessica Fletcher? Would you want her to be kind of exactly the same old, this will sound bad, spinstery looking woman?
I feel like Erin Cahill. Erin Cahill.
Okay, so you would be okay with a total radically different view of her.
Yeah, because she is a serious, because Jessica Fletcher is serious. She doesn't have a ton of it's not a laugh, haha, she's doing stuff funny. And I think Erin Cahill plays a really good, as we saw from Mystery 101, I think she plays a good detective and can sleuth things out, but she also has like a softness about her from, the romance movies that she's in. So I feel like she would be a nice blend. And then you'd have to have your Seth and your a good sheriff and based it in your Cabot Cove. So I'd have to think about who I'd want as Seth, the doctor, and
I'll
your
say I'm
sheriff.
amazed that I threw out this random question to you and you didn't even hesitate. So that you clearly have had these thoughts run through your head at some
No,
point
I
or another.
mean, I have, because I've seen online there's rumors that there was going to be a Murder She Wrote remake, but I have yet to see that actually happen. So you'd have to really do it right. That's what I gotta say. But in talking about what we're going to review next week, we are reviewing the morning show mystery, and we're going to review Countdown to Murder. So that is going to be the movie that we review. We have not talked about morning show, and so I'm very curious. I don't know what you think of it. You kind of know what I did because I hinted at it before we hit record today. So I'm excited to dive into that world because it's one that I feel might be a little underrated. So
Get
that's
our
where
Billy
we'll
Blessing
leave you.
going.
Yeah. That's where we'll leave you before we hop in the pond to episode 9 of The Way Home, Here Without You. All 3 Landry women struggle with life-altering decisions and choices. So, Eric, you have to respond with what you like. Don't say what you don't like. That's the next question. So start with, what did you like about this episode?
I will give it to you, as you said, the best episode of the year so far. But as I also said to you in our DM, like watching them sit and paint a room would have been the best episode also of the year. So my bar was set very low. I will not say, well, I can't say anything there. I do like the whole thing with Alice and it's Nick, right?
Yes.
The guy. I thought they handled that okay, in that I thought it was going to get a little creepy. It did not. And I thought the way where they're like, okay, we're going our separate ways, and her saying, yeah, the age, I had to break it off because the age thing, like I knew what was going on and it just wouldn't be there. But, every guy has always had to like, you're the measuring stick.
Mm.
I thought that was a really cute, tender way to deal with the relationship. So I did like that. I did like that we are one episode from the season finale. So that was good that we're moving beyond. I also very much liked, and I hope it sticks, that Jacob stays, that he said he's staying, that his life is there. Because we've talked about that before. And, the whole thing is just about Kat's selfishness. So I really like the fact he's like, no, this is where I am. I thought they added some weird drama to it, whatever. And I also liked that and why am I going brain dead on what her name is? The healer. Susanna. Like when she's like, oh, I'm going to go with you. Let me go hop in the pond. And it didn't work. I liked that because I thought her coming into modern day was just going to be corny, and I thought it was going to happen. So I did like the fact the things that were really driving me crazy, they didn't go further down the road in that. So I did like that. So it got a little more grounded for me. I still do not like Kat at all. I did not think she did anything in this episode that got her back on my redeeming path. I still think Elliot has so many issues of codependency, and like the two of them need to be in individual and couples counseling. So that's where I'm at.
For me, as I told you, I was like, I'm back in the pond. I loved this episode. I felt like it was much more season 1-ish. It had like a good character building. I think for many of the characters, it moved us forward, which I feel like they hadn't done until basically the last 2 episodes, which they could have done way earlier. I also enjoyed that Kat jumped back in the pond to try to save Alice from the Lyndon Moore situation. So that was her intent, and then brought her back obviously to the 1800s, but I liked that scene as well as Susanna jumping in and not being able to. I'm hopefully she'll stay in the 1800s and she won't be able to this next episode. We'll see. I enjoyed Nick calling out Elliot, that he liked having that power and being in control, and he was like his father. And then Elliot kind of, taking a pause and being like, actually, yeah, you're right. I did. And so I did enjoy seeing that transpire within Elliot. I think Kat was softer this episode. I don't think she was as harsh or as intense as she has been. Like I felt some sparks between her and Susanna. I was like, oh, are we going to go a different way? That's what I was thinking at first when they were back there.
One other thing I'll say that I enjoyed going back to the good thing was at the end when she's like, I got to go back and see Thomas, and Elliot's like, you can't change history. For the first time ever, they acknowledged, I know, but I can say goodbye or whatever. So I thought, once again, that was a great way to deal with the pond, which has driven me crazy of her going back and fixing things. And every time she does, she never learns and just goes and creates more and more havoc. So I liked that as an ending too. So there, I have a lot of things I liked.
Yes. And then I would say another thing too. What did you think of like the she hit her head, she gets to the hospital, finds out she's pregnant with Alice, and then Brady and her get back together. Did you like how that was kind of wrapped up with Alice watching?
It was okay, I guess. I think it creates for Alice some, now we have to get her more into therapy, even though she already needed it. But, finding out that your mom essentially gave up her life. But I thought, once again, her dad, the talk that she had with that was pretty good too, of yes, you were not necessarily planned, this was not the direction, and we had our big hopes, but at the end of the day, having you and our love for you was better than any of those things, could have been. And I thought that was once again, that is actual parenting that Kat could maybe watch, take some notes on how to be a good parent. So I thought,
well, Brady did mention though to her, Kat, I thought this was an interesting line that he had said, you've always been a great mom, and Alice should stay here with you. Did you? Because I watched this episode twice because I was like, I liked it so much. I was like, let me go back. Let me go back again and just watch. And then that line, I was like, oh, that's interesting that he threw that in there.
See it. He doesn't see her in a day.
Well, I thought that was a way of answering critics like us who have been critical of her as a mother. And I'm like, oh, maybe that was the way of saying, we didn't see her parent in Minneapolis. We've just seen what's happening now. So, up until then, maybe she was. And then her jumping in the pond, I feel like there is some evolution to her that is happening. It should have happened maybe a little sooner, but that's where I feel like the show is maybe trying to right itself a little bit. So we're not so Kat is a horrible human and a horrible mother. We're starting to be like, okay, we got to take some of those edges off and make her more likable for people, even though she's not to you. So what did you not like about this episode?
Once again, while you are feeling a love fest for Kat, I still don't think it. At the beginning with Jacob, still she's like, no, you have to come back to, us and, forget your life. This is about you coming back.
But she did concede in the end to say, yeah, you can stay. So you have to give her that. So again, the softening.
No. Okay. No, I'm not coming with you. No. All right, fine. Yes, conceding. It's not like she was supportive of it. And I would not put it past her to put a duffel bag burlap bag, whatever, his head and throw him in the pond and, kidnap him back to the future. The Nick dude, yes, he called Elliot out. His just whole role back in the present day, for some reason, I just like it. It's just weird to me. It's just a weird introduction of a character into modern day. So it just feels disjointed. But yes, he did call Elliot out on the things of being like, oh, you just had this whole control thing going. Like I said, I really is waiting for him to be full out. Hey, Alice, I know I don't know how old she is now, like 16, I guess. But hey, Alice, you want to make out? So I would not have put that past him, but he did not do it, fortunately. So like I said, all in all, I think I'm just too far gone this
I'm
season.
surprised you have not mentioned what I didn't like. I'm shocked. So
I'm sure it's probably there. Like I say, I watched it once, and like I say, I watch it begrudgingly just so we can talk about it.
So, and I'll be curious to see if you also agree with this. What I didn't really like, I found it really odd. Dell never went to the hospital to visit Kat when she hit her head after Linganmore. Like that just seems weird. Like this is your only, I mean, your husband has passed now and your child is missing and your one daughter who's in the hospital with like a head injury. Like this is serious. Like I should be there with you. And she wasn't. That was odd. I found their fight like that was it. That was the reason they didn't talk for 17 years. Like, I mean, I've had words with my mother as an adult and we've both been angry, but then we chat, a week later and it's fine. That's just, I feel like sometimes you have friction in a mother-daughter relationship. And I feel like that was a friction moment. And as the mother, it's kind of on Dell to own up to that. I mean, because Kat is what, in her mid-20s? Like Dell in this situation is the adult. And so Dell should have been like, hey, I'm so
I don't even think she's
sorry.
that old. I think she's only like 20, barely 20. Because didn't she she's just off?
Well, no, because it's 2007. If they graduated in 2002, so she's about literally she should be around my age because I graduated in 2003. So all of this, and I graduated college in 07.
That's it. So you just relate to Kat.
Yes.
All right.
Well, no, not really at all, actually. But I mean, I'm saying the same.
So she's older.
I don't relate to her at all.
I thought she was much younger than that.
No. So she would be around my age current day, which she'd be about 40. And so that's where all of this.
So wait, why is she getting ready to go to London at this? Wouldn't she have already?
She would have graduated college for like a year. Because again, I graduated in 07. So she would have graduated in 06 if she's a year older than me. So, you take a year and then you go, like I've had friends who did that.
Okay.
So, I mean, to me, it all checked. And again, it's on Dell a little bit to reach out at that point because you have a young 20-year-old. Like, of course, they're going to fight you. That's just what happens. And so I felt like there should have been some more ownership there. So I found myself not liking Dell as much this episode that I previously, she was kind of my higher character. So that was kind of a bummer.
Let's see, Dell for me, she started out the season okay, but I think she has also been, not a great person character. And I'm also just perplexed by the very nature of the pond, getting out, being soaking wet in all your clothes. Like you would not be like, oh, it's raining. You would be drenched.
I loved that scene with Brady and Alice at the table, and she comes in, and Brady's comment was, "Oh, it's raining," with her being wet.
Right, that would be like Alice, a little wet.
Alice and her hugging, and him just like, I just was like, "Oh, this is so funny." Like just a dad who's like, I have no idea what's going on right now. Why are they hugging each other? Like, did you not just see each other this morning? Just like the whole. I can just imagine him and just being like, whatever. I guess it's my girls. I don't know.
Yeah, I just still don't get the whole thing of just getting out of underneath water, how wet you would actually be. And, running like her shoes, like the little things like that. Now I know it's whatever show and we're not supposed to take it too literal, but it just, for some reason, and I guess I'm at that point where like the little things just
they matter to you. Yeah.
For me.
What about a standout scene? Did you have any standout scenes or performances?
Yeah, like I say, I'll go back to the one where Alice talked to Nick. Alice is
that was mine too.
Way more mature than her mom, I think. Right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's
her
because
grandma.
maybe it's because she's traveled in time so much that she's older than her years and everything like that. But Alice is still, to me, even because when she does act impulsively or irrationally, she's at an age where it's appropriate, and I don't fault her for it. I think she acts like a normal person would at that age. So she's the one character throughout. And I will say, I was always not like, oh, Brady's shady in some way. I'll put him back on. He's turned out to be once again, I'd rather her stay with him in Minneapolis at this point. I think it would be much healthier. And he does seem to have a genuine interest, though. And I guess it's for the plot. You'd think, traveling all the way from Minnesota, which you live there, for you to get to Nova Scotia on a whim thing. It's not like it's, oh, hey, I'm heading over to, North Dakota or somewhere within a short drive, or even going to Iowa, right? No, this is going all the way over there. And he seems just to pop up and they're like, oh, hey, I got to go see a friend. I'll see you later. I find that's the whole dynamic of how they ignore Brady despite him traveling great distances odd, but whatever. But back to my point, Brady does seem to be a pretty stand-up dude who I always was waiting for something shady of him being the big twist where he, like I said, I still thought he was the one who threw Jacob in the pond because he was jealous.
Good guy. It's a good guy. Well, that was my scene as well. I found it nice. And I also liked that Kat asked Elliot, and you were supervising this. And Elliot's like, yep, I was sitting in the stairs watching the whole thing, which I found also endearing, I guess, as a mom, because the same thing. It's a creepy situation. Like, what's going to happen? You hope that Nick's not going to do anything because she's a young girl and he's now a lot older. And so I liked that, Kat did say, Elliot, can you stay and watch? And he stayed there, probably for Nick's benefit too. It can go both ways, like just making sure everything stays above board here. So I did like that comment. I know,
but that just shows, like, if you even have to think that, why would you even have
but as
Nick,
a mom,
like you shouldn't even be friends with Nick. You shouldn't even be friends with Nick to begin.
You're being cautious. Well, no, and the same, vice versa, that Alice doesn't, get in her feels and decide that, like it can go both ways. Like this is, that's what I was thinking. So to make sure nothing happens on either end. So, well, what do you hope is coming next? I have some big hopes for this last episode. So what do you got? Because we know it was renewed. So we know there's a season 3.
I know. And I've been thinking about that. And by the way, I did my little post because the new Curious Cater does the thing where they do that period thing. And I made that joke about, oh, that's season 3 of The Way Home, which I don't think anybody got, because I had people like sending DMs asking, what are you talking about? So once again, my humor falls flat that nobody gets.
I didn't get it either, but I was like, hey.
That was my hope, that season 3 was actually the cast of Curious Cater, and we're done with Kat and Del and
wrong,
Eric. So I don't know, because I guess my whole thing is I was thinking all along it was going to come to a conclusion, but now we know all it's going to do is we're going to get to a point where it's going to open up something else.
Yep.
And in general, this isn't just a Way Home thing. This is in general for me, and I've had this conversation with my wife quite a bit. For me, season 3s are the hardest seasons for a show, because you've kind of, in the first one, you've got all the freshness of it. The second one, you can sort of extend it, but usually by season 3, you have to have something fresh. You have to have a new direction. You have to have something that creates a sustainability. And very often season 3 of shows just are terrible. And I think, so I'm just now racking my brain with what are they going to do to extend this now that you know where Jacob is, and are they just going to have it to be this continuous going back and forward, which to me would get old, even with all the drama. Oh, by the way, we did not touch on, so that little log, does that mean Thomas is dead?
So right? Remember how I think they used Thomas's name for Jacob as well, remember? Because when he came back. Ship. And so that's where
he made the trade. And you don't know what the trade was for Jacob.
Correct. And so that's where I'm like, could this actually be Jacob? But they used Thomas's name, or is it actually Thomas? And you kind of, well, I noticed this the second time watching it. It sounded almost like a gunshot to kind of finish the show. And it was a zoom in on Elliot, and it was like a gunshot noise. Obviously not on Elliot, but like thinking back in the 1800s. And so I found that intriguing. So that's why I'm like, the end of the episode, I left like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for more. Del, I hope she finds closure on Colton. It seems like that episode they're going to focus on that. I really hope so, because Dell needs to move on in
Yes, she
season
does.
3. We do not need any more of the
And-
flashbacks. I feel like she got pulled back this season. Season 1, she wasn't like this. In season 2, they've
Right.
really thrown that in there, where she needs a new storyline. And then I'm also
But
intrigued.
I think that's to her detriment of her character.
For
right?
sure.
I thought
for
her
sure.
character arc was pretty good. Yes, she had
Yes.
gruff. Yes, she had her issues. And I think one of the things that has made Dell, just for me at least, not as likable, is it did pull her back into this thing where it's like the Colton, I can't even function without seeing we've mentioned before,
And
like
that's
the
not
flannel
how
shirt.
she was when
Right.
we met her, So that, I agree, it did her a disservice this season. And then the time travel, can others time travel? Like, we were left with that question. I'm very intrigued. And then they also finish with, why does Alice travel back? And we are going to figure out why she was able to why she traveled to this time period in particular. So I'm really like, oh, there's going to be I hope they answer some of these questions this next
You know
episode.
what?
I hope.
Here's my prediction. Season 3, Dell gets into the time travel. So and they also opened up the door with the I owe, is it the Goddard, whatever? I owe her, like I had to sell
Goodwins.
the land to her because I owe her for keeping it. Like, to me, that was so, you
There's
don't
probably
have
a
to sell
purpose.
all your property
Right.
because of once again, why did you have to do this to keep it out of the new thing is mind-bogglingly contrived to me, but maybe that's where it gets into some more of the land aspect of it. I don't know. Like I said, I see season 2 has been tough, obviously, for me, but season 3, I don't know where they can. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very hard to figure out something that's compelling and interesting and not annoying.
Well, I'm all in.
Here you were 2 weeks ago. I'm so out, and now 1 episode later, you're all in.
Threw me in. I know. What can I say? I'm easy to entertain, apparently.
That's why we had, after all these years, good, easy entertainment, fun entertainment.
Right. And that's why I can watch Murder, She Wrote episodes over and over. I'm just easily entertained.
I heard there's a crossover with the Golden Girls who come on to Murder, She Wrote, or Murder,
That
She
would
Wrote goes
be-
on to there. There's a murder in Miami, and Jessica Fletcher has to solve it.
That would have been fire, because her and B. Arthur, Angela Lansbury and B. Arthur in real life were really good friends.
What's
And
the one guy's character's name? Like, not Melvin, Marvin, the guy who's always
Stan.
in
Golden... Hi, it's me, Stan. Stan is actually a detective in Murder, She Wrote.
In Golden Girls, the one guy,
Stan, ex-husband.
No, Marvin or Melvin, or the one guy who comes back he's many different characters. The same actor plays different people.
There's a lot of
Betty White's. Because remember, he's like in the witness protection program kind of thing.
So sorry, Golden Girls.
And it starts with an M, whatever. So yeah, Murder, She Wrote comes back to solve that case.
Now I'm just like, I need to figure out.
Okay, while you figure that out, I will say, I want to also, one of the things I don't really get into it very often, but I was looking at the stats for the podcast, and boy, it has grown. So I just want to personally say thank you to everyone who listens. I am so pleasantly pleased that, we post at 3 a.m. on Pacific Coast time on Thursdays. And by the time I'm finished with breakfast, that we've had people who've comment on the issue or the episode. So, thank you everyone who listens. We'd love to keep growing, and tell a friend. Let's keep it going. It helps us get I'll go back to, the Allison Sweeney. She does not do a lot of podcasts, and it's by our listenership of everyone who's doing this. You're the one helping us secure guests like this. So greatly appreciate it. All right. I can tell by the smirk you figured out Miles. See, I was close with Melvin. So yes. So
I know you threw me off. I was thinking Stan, because he is in Murder, She Wrote and Golden Girls, so I couldn't get that out of my head.
Miles is she comes back and solves Miles's case for us. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you all for listening.
Yes. And once again, Andrea, this has been fun. Until next time.
Bye.
A little Billy blessing.
Yes. Bye.